Bonjour everybody, hello and welcome to the GCSE French Writing Practice Live. So there seems to be a lot less people on the weekend lives, but that's okay because I know a lot of people watch them back. But thank you guys for coming live. So let's look at what we're going to be doing today. So what we're going to be doing is going through 50 grade 8 or 9 grammar structures. Now I went through these in a video some time ago, but we're going to go through them again just as part of your revision. And then we'll be looking at some grade 9 writing exemplars for hire. And then we'll be doing a Kahoot at 8:30. So I finally found a GCSE French Kahoot. Okay. Yeah, and that will be happening on the night before the actual exam. We'll actually be going through the translation practice and maybe some more practice questions. In this one, we'll only be going through 2 practices, but this one is more about learning the skills, and then the night before we'll be actually answering the questions. Okay, now just a quick note on top of this that I would recommend watching this video, which is the grade 9 checklist to include in your GCSE French writing exam. I would recommend watching that because it contains a lot of the tenses and actually explains all of the grammar. So if you don't know all of the high-level grammar that you should include and how it works, then I would recommend going and watching that. However, if you are confident and you know all of the ones that are on the screen, you can see in the thumbnail there, then you can just watch this live. Okay, so we're going to begin by looking at the 50 grade 9 grammar structures. So look at the examples. All of these grammar structures are supposed to be used instead of just using the boring grades 5 or 6 kind of language. This is to spice it up and add that extra bit of grammar. So afin de, or pour plus infinitive. So this is any structure which contains an infinitive in it is considered a high-level structure in the GCSE French spec or in the examiner's report. So it just means in order to. So instead of just using the present tense, that is another way to improve that. Next up is using the word sans. So sans means without. So sans dire, without talking. Sans manger, without talking. So without eating, sorry. So this is a good structure because not only is it an infinitive structure, it also uses the sans, which is actually supposed to be a high mark term. Okay, au lieu de, which means instead of doing. So instead of doing plus an infinitive, and that's a really useful structure to use. So au lieu de manger, instead of eating. So all of these seem to be infinitive structures. That's what we're going to begin with, and they get you any marks. So any way to use the infinitive, whether it's like this or through any of your other methods, that will be really good technique. You can also say avant de, which means before. Si seulement je pouvais. So je pouvais is the conditional part of things. And the really good point about using the conditional tense is that when you're using it, you not only are getting a tick for using another tense, but you also get to have an infinitive structure because it's always conditional plus infinitive. If I could eat, then it would be je pouvais manger. Thank you, sports commentaries. I'm appreciative of that. So si seulement just adds that extra level of a si structure, a si clause, which you may have learnt, and it just means if only. Number 6, je voudrais or j'aimerais plus infinitive. So I would like to. It's just 2 different ways of saying I would like to, and it's using another tense, which is another way of getting those top marks. They tick. We'll show you how. We'll go through the grade 9 responses and show how an examiner actually marks it. They look at the tenses, they look at the grammar, they try and avoid looking at the mistakes, but if there's a lot of them, then they'll get rid of them. Okay. Avant, je pouvais, so before I used to be able to. So even though it's got the je pouvais, which is I could, so you're using the conditional tense here, you're also going to be using, you're talking about the past, which is interesting. Not conditional, sorry, imperfect tense, which is often not really used because everybody who's talking about the past typically uses the perfect tense. So imperfect, this is a good way to put it in. Avant, j'aimais, another way of using the imperfect tense. J'ai de la chance de plus infinitive. So I am lucky to plus your infinitive, another good structure. Je viens de plus infinitive. So that just means I have just. Now this actually counts as a whole nother tense. So I would definitely recommend at least trying to put this phrase somewhere in your GCSE French writing. So the I have just done, I've just seen, I've just eaten, that counts as another tense. For some reason, it doesn't count as present and it doesn't count as past. It's this extra tense that you get marks for. So if there's one tense I would want you to use, it's this one. So je viens de voir, I've just seen. Je viens de lire, I've just read. Je suis en train de, so I'm in the middle of, and then infinitive. So even though you're using the infinitive, it's still acting as if an ing verb. Yes, you will be able to watch this live stream after it finishes. Okay, and être en train de is that bit where you can use that for, because obviously you get more marks if you don't just speak about yourself in your writing, you speak about other pronouns as well, like my sister, they, plural, singular, masculine, feminine. So it shows that you just haven't learned French in only your perspective, whether it's masculine or feminine. Okay. J'ai envie de plus infinitive, which is another way of saying like I like something or I want to do something or I feel like doing something. J'espérais plus infinitive, so I hope to, another infinitive structure. J'ai l'intention de plus an infinitive, which means I intend to do something. And this is a really good one to use for the topic, which is talking about your career and future ambitions, because if you've really used the future tense a lot, because obviously in the writing, the question that they'll be asking will be focused on a specific tense. If it's asking about a tragic holiday, then you're talking about the past. So a way to talk about the future, for example, but without having to use a future tenses is this phrase here. So you can get the present in at the same time. I won't be doing Spanish live streams, unfortunately. I just will be doing French. I might do Spanish next year onwards. Okay, another phrase to use, which is really important in the schools module, which is like about looking at rules. So il faut or il faudrait. Il faudrait is really much better because it's talking about using it in the future tense. So il faut literally means one must. So in terms of school rules, like mâcher de chewing gum, things like that. So if you want to say one should, for example, il faut porter le uniforme scolaire, one should wear school uniform or anything like that. But il faudrait is an improved version of that because you're using that structure in another tense. Okay, and here are a lot of the same, well, different tenses, but the same overall phrase. So on peut, which is one can. So you can see in the different tenses. So you've got the conditional tense, on pouvait, the future simple, on pourra, on pourrait, if it's one would be able to, and on aurait pu, which is one would have been able to. The pluperfect tense is another really good tense to use, and if you're unaware of how to use that, I would recommend watching one of my videos on the YouTube channel which explains it. J'aurais dû or j'aurais pu, so this is another good one because it's using the imperfect tense, but the do or pu bit is quite interesting because it's using the past participle of conditional verbs. So this is a really, really good phrase to use. It counts as a lot more points than just using a single tense. The best way to do it, because obviously they have word limits in the writing, like 80 words or 150 words. So you want to get the most tenses in the least amount of sentences. So that's why often in GCSE French writing or any language writing, you have so much more time. But you want to avoid just adding more sentences because they might stop marking it. Instead, you want to take your time and write sentences that have a lot of techniques packed into them. Okay. Here you've got a similar thing talking about the il y a, there is or there are, or il n'y a pas de. Il y a beaucoup de gens, so there are a lot of people, that's an example, and then you can use that in different tenses, il y avait, il y aura, il y aurait, etc. And the negative version of that as well, you get extra marks in French if you use the negative version and don't just keep using the positive version of things. So instead of I like everything, I don't like as well, because you're opening yourself up to different grammar structures and you're talking about different sides as well. Même si is a good one. It means even if. Do they stop marking after you've reached the 90 or 150 word limit? I've always wondered this. They have a little bit of they don't mind if you do. So probably like if you go a sentence above that, they'll probably mark it. But if it's significantly above the word limit in that they actually realize it without having to count the words, that it's way above what you would normally write, then they'll have to stop marking at a certain point. But I don't think they're often very strict about this. So try and stay roughly within the limits. Okay, number 20 is looking at Je suis sur le point de. So this is a nice lengthy phrase where you're saying I'm about to. And it's a good way of rearranging the present tense. Any way of having a unique structure to talking about something is really good. Si je pouvais, j'aimerais. So if I could, I would like to. You've got the infinitive structure, you've got the si clause, and you've got the conditional tense. That's a lot of good things in that phrase. Leniency, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, there's only a 10% leniency. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you, Alina. Again, that's another structure like that. Okay, number 22. J'ai décidé de, j'ai décidé que. So, which one is the one that needs complex vocab? They both need complex vocab, but I maybe put more emphasis on the 150 word one. Yeah, exactly what Sean is saying as well. J'ai décidé que. So I decided to, but notice how you've also got the que bit here. Now, what's really good about this is you've got the different tenses here. So you've got the past tense, and you've got different forms of past tense, so in the imperfect and the perfect. And you've also got the infinitive as well. So you've got 3 tenses packed into one small phrase. That's really good. 23. Ce que je veux or ce que j'aime. So this is a useful strategy because they said it in the examiner's report that they don't want to see sentences which are just normally structured. So this is an example of transposition when you're switching the order of sentences. So instead of saying, I like to go to the park, you say the park is somewhere where I like to go. So it's switching the order, and that is, you do get more marks for French if you do that. So ce que je veux, ce que j'aime, and then rearranging it like that. Is there any way to branch out the 2 bullet points they give? When you're branching out, I would say it's only worth branching out if you're going to put in some high-level language. If you just want to talk about another topic because you have more vocab for it, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to do it just so that, and if there's an obvious link as well, you don't want to go too far. Yeah, well done. Okay, ce qui m'intéresse or ce qui m'ennuie, so what annoys me or interests me, ce qui m'attire, what attracts me, le plus, le moins. So you've got superlatives there, like the most or the least. That's another technique. 25. Me, te, lui, nous, vous, leur plaît. So, ça me plaît, ça te plaît, ça lui plaît. So a lot of people say ça me plaît, like that appeals to me, I like that. But you want to consider other pronouns as well, apart from that. You don't need to use the pluperfect tense or any extra tenses. They're just what will help accelerate you to getting a better grade. I talk about it in my other writing video, which has all of them listed. Obviously, you don't have to mention all of them and you don't have the time to mention all of them, but I would try having your best shot at doing it. I would recommend, this is a tip that I used to do, is that just before I would start writing, I would list out all of the tenses that I wanted to include as like a checklist so that I could then check back. That might help you guys. Okay. Moving on. Ce qui me déplaît, that's another way of using the negative without using any ne. Okay. Here's some more C structures and C clauses. So, si je vais à la université, if I go to university, si je l'opportunité, if I have the opportunity, si j'ai la chance, which is a good phrase to actually use and implement, si j'avais la possibilité, if I had the possibility. So this is C clause and using the imperfect tense, which is really good. So take note of those. The C clause is an example of a higher level term. Quand is actually quite overly used, to be fair, in the exams. Like people always say quand je serai plus grand, quand j'aurai 20 ans. So a lot of people use the quand phrases, so it's not that unique, but I would suggest still using it if you have nothing else to arrange your sentences in. Lorsque is another one. Yeah, well done, Ishan. Quand plus imperfect tense. This is what's used as well. Quand j'étais plus petit, quand j'avais 5 ans, etc. These are used a lot more as well. So yeah, lorsque is another one to use. Probably much better, higher mark one. Okay, moving on to the next one. Quand plus weather. So quand s'il fait beau, this is much more rarely used. So I would recommend using this when it's nice. Quand il fait chaud, quand s'il pleut, quand s'il neige. Talk about the different weathers. Try to be a bit more tropical than just talk about the mundane British weather to show that you've learnt everything, not just what applies to you. C'est la meilleure or c'est le meilleur, depending on the gender of what you're discussing. C'est le or la pire que, it's the worst. That, again, use of superlatives. En plus present participle. So this counts as another tense. So this is effectively the equivalent of using ing verbs in English. So for example, I am doing a marathon, or anything which is like doing, eating, singing, but the purpose of the en at the beginning, that is effectively whilst. So if you wanted to say whilst eating, en mangeant, en changeant, so what you do is you take the new form of the verb and you get rid of what's behind that new form, and you then just add ant to that, and you put en in front, and that effectively means whilst something. So en allant, by going, en changeant, by changing, etc. Will the list of these phrases be available after the stream, or should we make our own notes? I would say make your own notes, because all of this came from pictures, so there's not actually a proper list made yet. So yeah, you may have to make your own notes. Okay, the present tense plus depuis. So that's another phrase. So it just means since. That's a good thing to implement. Je joue au foot depuis 5 ans. J'habite à wherever depuis 10 ans. Yeah, this is a video beforehand, actually. So we're just going over it for revision. but in a much faster way. The imperfect tense plus depuis as well. Je jouais au tennis depuis du son. Okay, ça fait, that's a good one to use. I don't see that often. So, ça fait 2 ans que je joue au tennis. So, it's been effectively, but then it reads as I've been playing tennis for 2 years. Okay, using negatives, as I said, that gives you those higher marks. So ne or ni. So when you're listing something, you say, I do neither this nor this nor this. So effectively, that's the equivalent of saying ne ni. Ne rien, nothing. Ne que, only. Il n'y a qu'un magasin dans mon village. There's only one shop. There's none other than one shop. That's effectively what it's saying. That's a good phrase to use because you're using your negative in quite a complex way. Il y a plus the time, talking about how long ago something has happened. Il y a 5 ans, which is effectively the same thing. Après plus infinitive, that's a good one, plus past participle, because you're talking about using the infinitive structure and past structure. Therefore, that's 2 ticks, and you can use it in a lot of broad-ranging contexts. So, après avoir regardé, after having watched something, then you can say, you can go into talking about the conditional, after that, the future. So, there's a lot of ways you can really diversify this and add more tenses to that. That's why it's a useful one. Using the I, so j'y vais. So I effectively means there. So j'y vais 2 fois par semaine. I'll go there twice a week. Je vais y rester l'année prochaine. I'm going to stay there next year. So you can see it works for all tenses. J'en fais le week-end. So on, the en means some. So I play some at the weekend. I do some at the weekend. J'en mangeais, that's another way of talking about something. It's effectively saying it or some of it. But yeah, it's useful for food, talking about food, because that's often plural. Subjunctive. Now, subjunctive is a tense that's quite difficult. I wouldn't say memorize exactly how it works. I would just say memorize certain phrases so you can implement them, because otherwise it'll be quite difficult in the exam thinking about how it works. It's definitely an A-level phrase. A-level tense, sorry. So, bien que j'ai 15 ans, although I'm only 15 years old, bien que je n'ai que 15 ans, that's I'm only 15 years old. So, bien que j'ai or je n'ai, it might seem foreign to you right now, but, well, obviously it's French, but it's a useful tense to show off your skills. Okay, and there's some more examples of the subjunctive tense. Je voudrais que, and then you've got the soit. So it always is, the subjunctive tense seems to just talk about what you wish for in the future and how you want things to be. It's quite an interesting tense to have. So if you want to use any, bien que je sois, that's another good one for opinions as well. Well done, Ishan. But yeah, you can also say je voudrais que ma mère soit, or something like that. So when you're talking about your parents, your family, if you want, for example, je voudrais que mon meilleur ami plus something. It's good because you're using the subjunctive. And then normally if you're wishing for someone to be something, it's normally more or less. So you can also use comparatives in there as well. Okay, il faut que ma vie or mon collège fasse plus d'efforts pour recycler. This is a more complicated example of a subjunctive if you want to use that as well. Okay, and finally, number 50, which is the final version of the subjunctive tense. J'aimerais qu'il y ait une piscine olympique dans ma vie. So, like, I wish that there was a Olympic swimming pool in my town or in my school. Okay, so that goes through a quick revision of the key things. If you want to access that, as Ishan mentioned, I did do a video beforehand on that, so you can access those again, pause. But we're now going to look at writing exemplars, so actual answers and top answers to questions. So let's begin looking at the questions. So going through this, it's a bit small on my screen, so let me just open it. Okay. Vous écrivez un article sur le sport extrême pour un magasin français. So you're writing an article on extreme sports. Décrivez, describe un sport extrême que vous avez essayé. So an extreme sport that you've tried. Les inconvénients de sport extrême. The disadvantages of extreme sports. Write around 150 words in French. Answer both sides of the question. So do you want me to give you guys some time to answer the question? Or should we just go through the model answer? There's not too many people here, so it will be, there's no point doing a poll. Model answer. Okay, we'll look at the model answer then. When it mentions a magazine, do you still have to... Are you talking about writing it as a magazine? Essayer means tried. Sorry, I didn't understand that. But yeah, we'll go through the model answers then. The chemistry live stream really helped. I'm glad it did. Thank you for that. Okay. So let's go through the model answer then. So what we'll do is we'll read it, and then we'll look at the translation, and then we'll look at some key points from that. Okay. So, quand j'avais 13 ans, je suis allée en France avec mon collège et j'ai fait de l'escalade. Au début, j'avais peur, mais c'était une expérience incroyable. When it mentions a magazine, a blog, do you have to style it in the format, or does it not matter? It doesn't matter too much. Yeah. Well done, Nora. That is a good phrase. Okay. J'ai beaucoup aimé être à la montagne, surtout car il y avait de vues extraordinaires. Puis, après avoir atteint le sommet, tout le monde m'a félicité et j'étais fatiguée mais très contente. L'année prochaine, je vais retourner en France en hiver pour faire du ski ou du snowboard. J'attends avec impatience et j'espère que ce sera aussi passionnant que l'escalade. Cependant, cependant is a useful phrase as well, however, je sais qu'il y a de inconvénients au sport extrême. So notice how you're repeating what the question is asking you using those words as well. Et il faut prendre ce précaution. J'ai dû porter un casque quand j'ai fait de l'escalade et nous avions de cordes aussi. Le moniteur était vraiment professionnel et je me sentais très en sécurité. Par contre, mon amie est allée en Espagne pour faire du ski nautique et elle se cassait la jambe. Les sports extrêmes peuvent être très dangereux. Okay. So looking at the translation of the text, note down anything that you didn't understand from that. So when I was 13, I went to France with my school and I went rock climbing. At the beginning, I had fear. I was scared. But it was an incredible experience. I really liked being in the mountains, especially because there were extraordinary views. Then after reaching the top, everyone congratulated me. So that was an interesting sentence there. Tout le monde m'a facilité. So you can see that there's the use of a reflexive there, which is quite useful. Remember, reflexives are anything where you have a small me, te, se, leur before the verb, and they're quite high-tech to use as well. Okay. Next year, I will return to France in winter to go skiing or snowboarding. I'm looking forward to it and hope it will be as exciting as climbing. However, I know there are downsides to the extreme sport and you have to take precautions. I had to wear a helmet when I climbed and we had ropes too. The instructors were really professional and felt very safe. On the other hand, my friend went to Spain to water skiing and broke her leg. Extreme sports can be very dangerous. Do you have any universal idioms that we can insert into any topic? I don't know any by memory, but that's a good idea as well, putting idioms in. I guess if you search up some, they might come up. There's a lot of idioms about frogs for some reason, but yeah, we might go through some after this. So firstly, looking at the tenses. So hopefully you can spot that there are 5 different tenses in the answer. Now, if you go through my French writing video, I listed about 12 different tenses that you can put in your answer. So this is probably not as really high level of a response because it doesn't have that many tenses, but it's more the fact that there's not many grammar errors in this. There's not any grammar errors, I think, in this. So it's very direct and there's not anything wrong with it. So you need to focus more on trying to not make mistakes as well, rather than just putting a lot of high-level grammar in. Oh, I'm glad, Varun. I'm glad you found it helpful. Thank you. By the time you're in year 11, you'll probably be doing the live streams for next year as well. So hopefully you find them helpful as well. Okay, so you can see that there's 5 different tenses. So quand j'avais, je suis allé. So even though they're both past tense, you've got the imperfect and the perfect, so they count as 2 different. You've got je vais retourner, so the future, then ce sera, the other future, and then j'attends avec impatience, which is just present tense. Okay, so 5 different tenses. You can put a lot more tenses if you wish, but let's focus in now on some key grade techniques. So, j'ai beaucoup aimé être à la montagne, so using an infinitive structure there, and using the amplifier beaucoup is useful as well, and in the right way. L'année prochaine, so a time marker, and you're talking about the future. So obviously the question is phrased in the past tense, so using that demonstrates that you're linking it to other tenses. Aussi passionnant que, so that's an example of a comparative. So instead of saying, oh, you are more hungry than, or you are less hungry than, for example, it's saying you are as hungry as, or you are as exciting as. Cependant, je sais qu'il y a de inconvénients. So that's another good phrase. I know that there are negatives with extreme sports. Par contre, which is showing another opinion. So on the other hand, it's useful to show different opinions. That's what the examiners want to see. Not necessarily loads of opinions, but contrasting ones. Yeah, it would be a good place to drop an idiom. Let me see if there are any French idioms that we could use. Okay, let me share my screen because I've found a Quizlet which has some good ones. We can quickly go over them. What does the question say? So going back to the question page, you're writing an article on extreme sports for a French magazine. Describe an extreme sport that you've tried and the disadvantages. But obviously you're supposed to mention other tenses, like saying in the future, what you think you're going to do, etc. But yeah. Okay, now just going through some idioms as well, because as Ishan mentioned, yeah, come back for the Kahoot, it'll be at 8:30. As Ishan mentioned, they are quite useful to put in your response. So, going through some of these idioms. So you've got to cost an arm and a leg. Goûter les yeux de la tête. To be completely useless. If you want to write them down, just tell me to pause or just, oh, you can't see the screen. Yeah, if you want to write them down, just let me know and then I can go slowly over them. Yeah, you can mention any extreme sport. Okay, so this is to cost an arm and a leg. Okay. Another one that you can say is to be completely useless. Ne rien savoir faire de ce 10 doigts. I wonder what that means. Because obviously that's going to have a meaning. Oh, let me find it out. Yeah, the smaller live streams are fun as well to do. So not knowing how to do anything with 10 fingers. That's what it means. Okay, another one. To hit the nail on the head. Mettre dans le mille. It is easier said than done. C'est bien te dit. So notice this isn't a word-to-word translation, but this is just the French equivalent of common phrases in England. For hours on end, pendant 2 heures. That's a useful one to do. Okay. To throw a fit, faire une sente. To be dead tired, tomber de fatigue. That's right up my alley. C'est mon rayon. To know like the back of one's hand. Connaître comme sa poche. Yeah, these are quite good, aren't they, to use in the exam. To not sleep a wink. Ne pas fermer l'œil. Okay, so there's some good idioms to use. I can link this in the chat if you want to access them. Yeah, exactly. Freezing duck. Well, that's a funny one. The French have some really interesting phrases, and I don't know if you've ever seen in French movies, but their movies are quite weird as well, actually. No hate to any French people. Okay, that's a Quizlet link to the idioms that we just looked at. Okay, so yeah, they could have used idioms here as well. Notice this person, I found all of these responses from Kate Languages, like a PDF which she had written. So this hadn't come from a website, so I referenced her there. Is there a spec for what the writing exam could be on? I never usually understand the bullet points. what you need to do if you don't understand the bullet points is go through a lot of GCSE French writing past papers because they're often use the same words like inconvénient, désavantage, and then knowing your modules really, really well. So knowing all of the module vocab, that is really beneficial because that's what you can be tested on. So going onto the spec for GCSE French, I know this definitely works with Excel, I'm not sure with AQA, but going onto the spec, they have a list of every single vocab that you could be asked about. So maybe going over that, but I don't know how much time you would have, so I'd focus on writing as opposed to maybe learning lots of grammar. Okay. I always think listening to French songs helps before the exam. That's interesting as well. Well done. Now, I'm showing you a common writing exam mistake, which is talking about the preposition used when speaking about places. So often people don't know which preposition to use. So here's a table which really nicely wraps it up for you, which one to use. Because just as much as it's about getting those top grade terms, you also want to ensure that you are not including any mistakes as well. So for a city, it's always a. So New York, for example. If you're looking at countries that end with an E or start with a vowel, then it's always en. So en Suisse for Switzerland. If it's countries that do not end with an E or start with a vowel, for example, Canada, it will be au Canada. And if it's countries that are plural, then it's going to be aux, like au. So it's important to think about what you're talking about. And for example, if you're talking about London, it doesn't begin or end with the E or vowel, so it's going to be au Londres. But if we're talking about England or Angleterre, it's going to be a. Or, no, it's going to be en Angleterre, like en, because that obviously begins and ends with a vowel. Okay, moving on to another exemplar response. So, vous écrivez un article sur de vacances désastres pour un magazine français. So you're being asked to write an article about a disaster holiday. Décrivez, describe, de vacances terribles que vous avez passées. So, a horrible holiday that you've experienced. Comment les vacances auriont pu être mieux? So, how the vacation could have been better and improved. Write around 150 words. So normally, actually, in the exam, because this is taken off at Excel, these questions, but in the exam, they normally give you more than 2 bullet points, especially if it's going to be the 150 word answer. So they're going to give you a bit more bullet points, so be prepared for that. Quand j'avais 10 ans, je suis allée en vacances avec ma famille et ma meilleure copine. Nous sommes allés en Italie et nous sommes restés dans un hôtel terrible. Il était vieux et délabré, et la chambre était trop petite. De plus, il n'y avait pas de salle de bain dans la chambre et il fallait partager la salle de bain avec toutes les autres personnes de l'hôtel. Do they only give 2 bullet points for the 150? I remember when I was doing the exam, they would give a lot more. That's interesting. And 4 for 90. How does that work? Okay. Maybe it's changed then. Okay. Okay, maybe that's good actually. I guess this is more applicable for you. Where were we on? Ils ont dit qu'il y aurait vue sur la mer, mais nous avions vu sur le parking. Il y avait une piscine, mais c'était minuscule et l'eau était sale. Nous n'avons pas pu nager dans la piscine et j'étais vraiment déçue. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for telling me that, guys. S'il avait nettoyé la piscine ou si nous avions en vue sur la mer, les vacances auraient été mieux, mais pas vraiment. La seule solution aurait été de rester dans un autre hôtel. Je ne retournerai jamais dans cet hôtel. Okay. So let's look at this translation. I think it's generally quite easier to understand. So when I was 10, I went on a vacation with my family, my best friend. We went to Italy and we stayed in a terrible hotel. It was old and run down. And the rooms were too small. Additionally, there was no bathroom in the room, and you had to share the bathroom with all the other people in the hotel. They said there would be a sea view, but we had a view of the car park. There was a swimming pool, but it was tiny and the water was dirty. We were not able to swim in the swimming pool, and I was really disappointed. If they'd cleaned the pool or if we had a sea view, the vacation would have been better, but not really. The only solution would have been to stay in another hotel. I will never return to this hotel. So looking at the different tenses here, this only included 4 different tenses. However, I would say that this response could be improved a lot in terms of them being able to use more imperfect or more pluperfect with other phrases. But I guess because the question was mainly phrased in the past tense, it's quite difficult to talk about other tenses. So you've got 4 tenses there. But the good thing is that the last one, which is future, is a negative. So je ne retournerai. So that gives you extra marks. Now, another common error that's important to note is whether you put the E by itself, the E with an accent, or the E with the accent going the other way. Now, I apologize, I don't actually know what the names are of the different accents for E, but it is a very, very common mistake. So, you've got E in a small, when you just have E by itself, it's often in a small word, or at the end of a syllable. When you've got E with an accent, it's normally emphasized. So either accent. So la mère or Amélie. But people often get confused which one to have. A grab or a circumflex. Okay, thank you. Wow, you're quite knowledgeable knowing the different names, and that's quite useful. But the general gist of it is that when we're talking about ER verbs, you often have an E with an accent going that way when we're looking at the past participle. And for specific words like foot, pied, or cliff, keys, when E is with the other way, I guess it's hard to note, but I think the main difference is between when you have E without an accent or E with an accent. I don't think they'll be too harsh if you put the accent the wrong way, unless it's a word like préféré, where it's important to get the accents right, because you should have used that word a lot of times. Is it okay to write way more than 150 words? I don't think so, not too much more. You want to have a specific cap on that. Okay, so now just looking at the different key high-level grammar that the person has used in this answer. So let's see on Italy. So they've used the grammar structure that we've just talked about with looking at the prepositions before places. So obviously Italy begins and ends with vowels. So they use on. De plus, that's another useful term. Il n'y avait pas instead of il y avait, so using negative there. Il fallait partager. The person has really demonstrated their use of key terms and words from the module. Okay, and I'm not spotting any other really good terms. So there's a double use of the si clause in the last sort of paragraph. S'il avait nettoyé la piscine. So, but it's the si clause using the imperfect tense, so that heightens it rather than just using si with the present tense. There's not really too much use of other pronouns or other opinions. So this would probably be capped maybe at a grade 7 or 8, but all of the grammar is spot on. So it still would get quite a high mark. Okay, now it's almost 8 o'clock. However, I initially thought this would take a lot longer, so I would say that the Kahoot would start at 8:30, but we have a lot of time. So what would you guys like to do? Because if the Kahoot starts at 8:30, do you want to do some more writing practice or writing practice, or do you want to do something else? Like start the Kahoots, for example. But then we'll be doing the Kahoots for a very long time, so. You can put in the chat what you would like to do. Either go through more writing practice or do the Kahoot. Translation, do you want to do some translation practice? We can do that. That's a good idea. Yeah, maybe otherwise it'll be too long for doing Kahoot. So for the student to have gotten a grade 9, they could have used, for the previous discussion, we'll do translation now. For the student to have gotten a grade 9, they could have used other people's opinions, so spoken about different pronouns to show that they have learnt other genders, apart from the feminine gender or the masculine, whoever they're talking from. On top of that, they could have used some higher level grammar. So we went through 50 grade 9 phrases they could have used. Obviously, they didn't know that at that time, but using any of those would heighten their grade. So anything like that. So let's do the translation and then we'll do the Kahoot. Okay. So just in the writing exam, is it English to French or is it French to English? Because I think for AQA and Edexcel, it might be different. English to French. So we'll do an English to French one then for the translation. Okay, perfect. So we'll do English to French. So I'm going to give you one to do. Let me open up the document. For English, we'll be going through the live streams tomorrow. For poetry, we'll be looking at going through comparison plans. So I've made a lot of grade 9 comparison essay plans, which I'm going to put in a nice video for you guys to use. And I recommend memorizing those and practicing those. So it's not looking at the poems in isolation, it's remembering the comparison points you're going to make. Okay, so we're going to let's do translation and let's try and go through as many as we can because we've got time till 8:30. So let's start with translating this one. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Oh no, you can't. So translating this, let's try and translate it together. So, my favorite sport is athletics because I love running. I hate rugby, however, because it is too violent. My dad played tennis last week and he injured his hand. Next week, I'm going to play football with my friends in the park. I hope it will be very sunny. So, we'll go through this part by part. So, the first bit is my favorite sport is athletics because I love running. So, it will be ma sport préféré. Or favori, whichever one you use. Notice that the accents on the E are all facing the same direction. It's important to remember that. C'est l'athlétisme. They allow c'est, but effectively it should just be est, because not it is, it is. Because I love running. So you can say car or parce que j'adore. And what they're testing here is the verb for running, which is courir. So that's probably where people would mess up on. So the verb for running. I hate rugby. So we've got a however here, which is I hate rugby, however, but the mark scheme allowed you to say however at the beginning. So cependant, you don't want to say mais necessarily. Cependant, je déteste le rugby car, or you can say, yeah, just car, c'est trop violent. Because it's very violent. My dad played tennis last week. So mon père, and hopefully you know which way the accent goes for père. He played, so a joué au tennis le week-end dernier. And he injured his hand. So this is a hard one to say. How do you say he injured his hand? Well, the infinitive for to injure in French is blesser. So to say that he injured his hand, that's a hard one to do. But you'd say il s'est blessé à la main or il a blessé à la main. So the se part is the fact that the blessé can effectively become a reflexive because he's doing it to himself. So you can use the se part. If not, you can just talk about il a. So what is the difference between précédent et dernier? So précédent means previous and dernier means the last. So I guess it's kind of the similar thing. I guess it's how specific they want you to be. Dernier is much more used in the exam, I would say. Okay. Next weekend, I'm going to play football with my friends in the park. I hope it will be sunny. So next weekend, which is going to be le weekend prochain, I am going to play football. So je vais jouer au foot avec mes amis. So not too difficult to start off with. Okay, and then dans le parc. Okay, and then I hope it will be very sunny, so that exclamative at the end. J'espère qu'il va faire beau, or il va y avoir du soleil. That's a more unused one of saying it. So it's normally the first one. J'espère qu'il va faire beau. So you've got the two different French tenses. Okay, let's do another one now. Hopefully you're finding this helpful. If you want me to pause so that you guys can have a go at the translation, then let me know and I can do that as well. So the next one is going to be about food and drink. To test your knowledge on vocab like that. You can use souhaite if you want, but I would say with the translation, try to be as specific as possible. Il fait beau. We looked at it in one of our how to what's called grade 9 terms. So il fait beau is it is good weather, effectively. It is sunny. It is nice, yeah. Okay, I love eating chicken and salad because it is very healthy. So I love is j'adore. And then you've got the infinitive there, manger. And then chicken and salad. So we don't just say chicken and salad in French. You've got the prepositions which you need to ensure you use. So j'adore manger du poulet et de la salade. So remember looking at whether the nouns we're talking about are masculine or feminine, and then are they plural or singular? Do you prepare for any of the French questions? Not necessarily preparing for them, more just doing lots of practice, because obviously, yeah, the questions would likely come up. Like you can kind of predict them because the modules tend to ask the same thing, but then you've also got to be able to predict which of the 8 modules they could ask about. So you can't really prepare too much. Because it is healthy. Parce que c'est sain or c'est bon pour la santé. Either one. So it's good for the health or it's just healthy. C'est sain. This is a good one to remember. It often comes up because everyone knows how it's good for your health, but sain means healthy. It's the actual adjective. Note that if you don't remember what the French word for something is, don't just skip it. Try and put something similar to it. Okay. However, or although, I hate peas and I don't like drinking coffee. So peas are le petit pois because it's plural, and coffee is du café. So putting that together. Cependant, en mai, je déteste le petit pois et je n'aime pas boire du café. I don't like, and then you've got the infinitive drinking coffee. When I was younger, so hopefully you guys should know this, quand j'étais plus jeune, and note, you can't just say quand j'étais jeune, when I was young, because they're saying when I was younger. So there's a sense of comparative there. So you have to make sure you're translating it as accurately as possible. I ate a lot of sweets. So you can opt for the different past tenses there. You've got the imperfect and the perfect. So the perfect is j'ai mangé, which has the auxiliary in the past participle. Or you can say the imperfect je mangeais. Beaucoup de bonbons. I ate a lot of sweets, but now I am healthier. So, mais maintenant, je suis plus saine, or je suis plus en forme. They allow as well. So notice they allow a lot of synonyms for things. So always try and think, if you can't think directly of what the word means, think of what other words you could possibly replace it with. Next month, I'm going to eat in an Italian restaurant. So you know next week or next year is l'année prochaine. So next month is just going to be le mois prochain. And then I'm going to eat in an Italian restaurant. So je vais manger dans un restaurant italien. If anybody has any questions, just put them in the chat. It will be great. So ce sera or ça sera, or, and then it will be great. The future anterior. So that is the tense I was talking about, I think, which was, let me just double check. So the future anterior, you don't have to know it, by the way. Of course, it's another tense. So obviously there's 12 tenses that I went through in that video, or another video if you're not talking about that one, and you can go through any of them. So if you're uncomfortable with the tense, maybe just don't implement it. But let me just show you a picture of where you can use it. So here, this is what I mean. Let me... Hopefully you can see this. So it's with the future anterior or the future perfect. So you're talking about what you will have done in the future. So le fusée aura atterri quand le soleil se couchera. So that's a complex example, but it's saying that the rocket will have landed. By the time you are 14, you will have learned how to play the piano or something like that. So you're talking about what you will have done. So it's future anterior, that's another tense. But again, it's not necessarily part of the GCSE specification, so you're not required to know it, but you would get credited as an extra tense if you do put it in. Okay. Good question. So, yeah. It will be great because I love pizza. So that's going to be ce sera. It will be. And then what great. You can say génial or super. Formidable, chouette, any of those. Because I love pizza, c'est parce que j'adore la pizza. I remember it's la pizza because pizza is feminine in French. This is applicable for any exam board. Okay, we're now going to move on to another translation. So this next translation is on the topic of films, TV, and music. Last night I watched a horror film on TV. It was terrible. I prefer romance films and comedies. My brother hates watching films. He likes listening to rock music and he plays the drums. I play the piano, but I'm not very musical. I would like to sing in a choir. So last night begins hier soir. Oh, sorry. Hier means last and then soir is evening, so last evening effectively. I watched a horror film on TV. So you can use your classic perfect tense here. J'ai regardé un film d'horreur à la télévision. À la télé or à la télévision. It's up to you. It was horrible. Or it was terrible, sorry. So c'était terrible. So you've got, instead of ce, or c'est, sorry, which it is, you've got the imperfect version of that, and then terrible. I prefer romance films and comedies. So, je préfère. Notice with préférer, all of the accents on the E's are facing the same way. But when you start to conjugate it, depending on what gender and whether you're singular or plural, then the accents start to face different ways. So you say, je préfère le film d'amour et le comédie. So romance films are le film d'amour, or you could say le film romantique et le comédie. My brother hates watching films. Mon frère déteste regarder de films. Père and frère have the accent going in the same direction. He likes listening to rock music and he plays the drums. So, il aime écouter de la musique rock et il joue du tambour or de la batterie. So that's the drums. They always ask about the drums a lot as well. I think a lot of people don't really revise it as much as an instrument. So batterie is important. I play the piano, but I'm not very musical. I would like to sing in a choir. So I play the piano, je joue du piano, mais je ne suis pas très musical. Now, it doesn't really matter here whether you take on the masculine or feminine, because you don't know if the person speaking is masculine or feminine necessarily unless they say it. So it doesn't matter if you add an E or not. So it's kind of lucky in that case. So, oh, I hope your piano grade exams went well. That's nice to know. It's cool to be able to play the piano, actually. And stressful to do it whilst you've got exams. Okay. I would like to sing in a choir, so je voudrais chanter dans une chorale. Hopefully you know the French word for choir. Okay, we're going to move on to the next translation, which is about festivals, which is quite interesting. La fête. Got a distinction. Well done. Wow. That's really impressive. Okay, so now we're looking at festivals. So my favorite day is Christmas Day. Okay, you did it before the exams. That's good. That's a good idea. My favorite day is Christmas Day. Notice how every one of these translation passages have had the verb favorite, or like, what's your favorite, this, one way or the other. So always remember, where are the accents. Seems like a lot of people play the piano. Wow. That says a lot. Okay. So, mon jour préféré, notice here all the accents face the same way, c'est ou est le jour de Noël. Always try and make sure you put the correct accents on Christmas. Because I get lots of presents, so car or parce que je reçois beaucoup de cadeaux de ma famille. So receive, I receive is a useful one to remember, because obviously it's got that interesting accent on the C. And cadeau, it should probably be, let me check, because cadeau is obviously going to be plural. Okay, so this is an interesting one, guys. Make sure you note this. So when you're saying a lot of presents, even though presents is plural, you don't say des, you say de. So that's a useful one to remember. De ma famille. Okay. By the way, we're really close to 10,000 subscribers. So I hope we can get there. Maybe in the Kahoot more people will join, and that'll be quite fun. Okay, continuing on. I like to eat turkey and vegetables, but I don't like cabbage. So testing your knowledge on different vegetables. So j'aime manger de la dinde. So that's turkey, de la dinde. And vegetables, de légumes. Mais je n'aime pas le chou. You are, well, what the exam board expects you to know is from the spec, obviously on the spec document, the PDF, they have all of the list of all of the vocab, and they are allowed to test you on any of those pieces of vocab. So all you had to do is to just go and revise them. But obviously now the time is limited, so I recommend focusing on what words come up often by looking at past papers. For example, in my previous French one, I mentioned that, was it chômage? Comes up a lot, unemployment, and then that came up. So it's just looking at the patterns in the papers. But yeah, okay. Soon it's my birthday, and I'm going to celebrate with my friends. So soon is bientôt with an accent on the O. It is my birthday. C'est mon anniversaire. Okay. Yeah, preparing for everything is quite useful. And I'm going to celebrate with my friends. Je vais le fêter avec mes amis. So the le part of this is talking about I am going to celebrate it. But you don't have to put that, you can just put I'm going to celebrate with my friends. Last year, I went to France for New Year's Eve and it was fantastic. So l'année dernière, I went, je suis allée is fine, to France, so en France, because it ends in a vowel, so it's going to be en. Pour for, so pour. And then New Year's Eve, that's an interesting one to know. So it's la Saint Sylvestre, and that's what it's called. And it was fantastic. Et c'était fantastique. Okay, so hopefully that translates it well. And if you didn't know any terms, note them down because they can definitely come up in the exam. Okay, the next translation we're going to be doing is on the topic of home, regions, different parts of the house. By the way, we're going to keep doing the translations until 8:25, and then 8:25 we'll start preparing for the Kahoot. We're doing multiple French Kahoots, which will be quite fun. Okay, so let's try and do this translation together. I lived in a small house with I live in a small house with 7 rooms. So, j'habite dans une petite maison with 7 rooms. People often forget the actual noun rooms. So it's pièces. So you say avec 7 pièces. There is a kitchen. Il y a une cuisine. There is a living room, un salon, and 3 bedrooms, 3 chambres. So a lot of people call rooms chambre, but that's a bedroom. So you need to differentiate between those. We have a big garden and there are lots of flowers and plants. Thank you, Ishan, for coming, and I'll see you in hopefully a future live stream. Good luck for your exam. Okay, we have a big garden and there are lots of flowers and plants. So I think Ishan is in another country. Nous avons un grand jardin. And there are lots of flowers and plants. So, et il y a beaucoup de fleurs et de plantes. So hopefully knowing those 2 nouns there as well. The house is modern and upstairs there is a new bathroom. So the house is modern. You say la maison est moderne. And upstairs there is a new bathroom. So et en haut, like H-A-U-T. Il y a une nouvelle salle de bain. There is a new bathroom. In the future, I want to live in a bigger house. So, à l'avenir, in the future, je veux ou je voudrais habiter dans une maison plus grande. So you can't just say a big house because they're making the distinction here by saying bigger. So it's a comparative that they're asking you to plug in. Okay, we're going to do our last translation and then we're going to get ready for the Kahoot, which will start at 8:30. So this next one is going to be about social issues, i.e. doing exercise, sport, and different sports. So let's translate this higher text. So it's important to do lots of exercise to keep fit. Il est important de faire beaucoup d'exercices. And we spoke about lots of ways to say in order to. So you could say pour être, or pour garder la forme, or pour être en forme. If you don't do any sports, now they're asking for a translation of the negative part of the sentence, and you've got the si clause in there because si is if. So, si on ne fait pas de sport, you will become overweight. So, specific French tense here, future simple, on devient gros. And you can become ill. Et on peut devenir ou on peut être malade, which is ill. You risk heart problems and cancer if you are unhealthy. So, on risque de problèmes de cœur. Notice how you do transposition there between French and English. Et le cancer. If you are unhealthy. So, si on est malsain. So, healthy is sain, just by itself, but unhealthy is malsain. I play hockey every week. And I don't eat sweets, so I'm very healthy. So, je joue au hockey chaque semaine, every weekend. Oh, wait, no, every week, sorry. And I don't eat sweets. Alors, et je ne mange pas de bonbons. And therefore, so I'm very healthy. Alors, je suis très sain. Or you can say, je suis vraiment en forme, which means I'm very fit. Either will do. Okay, so those are a lot of the translations we've done. So I might put this up on my website, this document later, but I'm going to get some of the Kahoots ready now because I know some people might want to join them. So thank you for everybody who came and watched all of the writing revision. I hope you found that beneficial, and we'll do some Kahoots. Chaque means every. My website you can access because it's not got its own domain name, so it's difficult. Like if you search it up, it won't immediately come up. So you can access my website via looking into my bio. Or I can link it into the chat 1 second, which is here. There. Oh, thank you, Sports Commentaries, for that. Okay, so I'm sharing the French page. I'm going to allow some time to join people coming at past. So we'll probably have to wait a good 10 minutes. So till then, we can chat if you want, if you have any questions generally. But yeah, we'll wait for some people to join. And you can join as well, of course. Tout le weekend means all of the weekends. So if you want to say every weekend, you say chaque. A good question. So, what is your best way to revise 1 week from the exam? So, because obviously I would say for the weekend, try and spend your time on all of the subjects. But then, of course, during the weekdays, you're going to have to take your exams day by day. So you're not going to be able to revise something that you have on Friday if you have exams on Monday. So take it day by day. On the weekend, I would say just keep going over all of the content, but focus on exam questions, because they're not asked, if the GCSEs aren't a test of how well you know things, it's a test of how well you can answer the questions. Thank you everybody for joining the Kahoot. We'll start at 8:35. So this Kahoot has 25 questions, I believe. Yes, I will do another live the day before the exam as well. It will be for any exam board, because GCSE French is doesn't really matter too much. The Kahoot's going to start at 8:35 because some people are going to come a bit later. So we want everybody to come. But it's saying that there might be a player limit for the number of people who can join. So we'll see what can happen. I hope there's not, because I want everybody to play if they want to. Yes, it says on the screen. I will be doing live streams for GCSE Further Maths as well. Sorry for those who can't get in. I don't know what else to do. That's so sad. So only 20 people can play. That's really not good, is it? Let me see 1 second. Yes. We'll have multiple rounds of Kahoot, I guess. And no, what we'll do is the people who weren't able to join can still kind of answer the questions, maybe. And we'll do multiple rounds of Kahoot anyway. So if you can't join this game, you can join another. So I guess we'll have to get started anyway. Okay, sorry about that for those people. Don't worry, you should be able to join the other games. Which is not a group of verbs? One second. Okay, so 11 people or 18 people got that right. Only one person got that wrong. Spot the incorrect part of aller or ali. The question is on the screen. I don't know how to put the question on your screen, guys. Can I do that? Ah. Okay, you can just see the question hopefully now. What part of avoir are correct? Okay. Question 4, which is incorrect? Nous sommes, ils sont, on est, ou vous êtes. Yeah, for those who are unable to join the Kahoot because there's a limit of 20 people, you're going to have to answer in the chat. But well done, 9 people got that correct, and some more in the chat. Okay. Present tense, which is correct? Nous prendrons, nous vendrons, vous lirez, vous finissez. Okay, so the correct answer was vous finissez. All of the other ones, it's actually vendons. And yeah. Okay. Near future tense, which one of them have a mistake? Je vais faire, nous allons finir, on va jouer, tu vas sortir. Okay, yep, the answer is on va jouer. There should be no T. Okay, well done, que pasa? Perfect tense has how many parts? As in auxiliary, what's the other part? Yep, so the correct answer is 2, because you have the auxiliary part, which is avoir or être, and then you have the past participle of the actual verb itself. So there's only 2. So let's see who got that correct. Well done, important. You're getting that correct on the YouTube. Spot the incorrect past participle. So we mentioned something about that. Is it fini, lu, pris, or écoute? So it's écoute, which most people got correct. Okay. Which past participle would not use avoir as the auxiliary verb? So it's rester, because that you use. Remember, for the Mrs. Von der Trump verbs, those are the ones where you use non-avoir or être. Or in this case, you use être, so je suis resté, for example. Okay. Which past participle would not use être as the auxiliary verb? Tomber, mort, lever, or répondu. So the answer was répondu. That uses avoir as the auxiliary. Okay, let's see if anyone can beat que pasa. Which past participle would not need any agreement? Arriver, manger, et or venu. This is all down to whether it uses être as the auxiliary or avoir. Manger, exactly, because manger uses avoir. So it's not one of the Mrs. Von der Trump verbs, so you do not have to conjugate it to the person. Okay. Which is incorrect? Je me suis levé, ils sont partis, nous sommes levés, vous êtes descendus. You don't necessarily need to know the Mrs. Von der Trump verbs, just know broadly which ones they are. Nous sommes levés is the incorrect one. Well done. How do you work out the stem for the imperfect tense? You take off the last letter of the infinitive, you use nous from the present tense, you use the je form from the present tense, or do you use a new form of the perfect tense? So you use a new form from the present tense. It's very rare that you use a new form from the perfect, okay? Oh, the boards have changed completely, okay. Which imperfect ending is not correct? Ion, ie, or iont? By the way, this Kahoot is all about grammar, verbs, conjugation. The next couple of Kahoots after this will be about vocab. So they might be a bit more accessible to you guys. Okay, so the answer is IENT. That isn't an ending. It should be AIENT. Okay. Which is not an imperfect tense? Je mangeais, il lisait, lycéen, nous jouions, or on finissait. Well done for those answering in the YouTube chat as well. I'm reading your answers as well. Yep, so well done in the chat as well. It is red. So only some people got this. Okay. When do you not use the imperfect tense? Is it to describe what you usually do? To translate was and were? To translate used to? Or to give opinions in the past tense? So when do you not use the imperfect tense? So when you're asking me to explain why, which one are you referring to for those in the chat? I'm guessing you're referring to the previous question. So what I'm talking about is for the reason why je mangeais was not imperfect was because for it to be imperfect, you include the E. So it would be mangeais to be imperfect. So it wasn't imperfect. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Which time phrase is the odd one out? La semaine dernière, samedi dernier, hier, or le lendemain? Okay, so most people got that. Well done. So la semaine dernière, last week, samedi dernier, last Saturday, hier, last, and le lendemain, which is the day after the next, I think. Yeah, the following day. Lendemain means the day after the next. Okay. How would you translate she got up? Is it elle est levée, elle se levait, elle s'est levée with two E's, or elle est levée with one E? Sorry for the people who can't join. It's because there's a limit to the number of people on the Kahoot, unfortunately. Well done. It is the third option because it's feminine, so it's two E's, and it's say because she's doing it to herself. She's getting herself up. Okay. How would you translate I used to live? J'ai habité, j'habitais, je habitais, or je suis habité? Yeah, the S means herself. Well done, important. Okay, apparently the player limit has been reached, so I don't think anyone else could join. Yes, it's j'habitais. But remember, whenever there's a H or the verb begins with a vowel, then you're going to have an apostrophe and it'll be just je plus just a J apostrophe word. It won't be two separate words. Well done, Angel, and well done, Baguette. Well done, everybody else as well. How confident do you feel at tenses? I'm awesome. I'm confused.com. Oh, I think this is just an extra question. No, it's H isn't a vowel. It's either H or vowels. Okay. The player limit has been reached, so I don't think anyone else can join, unfortunately. Which is the incorrect future form? Je serai, je finirai, je jouerai, or je prendrai. So it is je jouerai. Okay. And we're almost there. Which verb is in the conditional perfect? Je serais parti, j'aimerais, j'avais fini, or j'aurais voulu. So j'aimerais is just conditional, j'avais fini is just the past, je serais parti is the future, so j'aurais voulu is the only conditional perfect. Well done, Grace. Bien que is always followed by, so this is actually this. Well, I was going to spoil it there, but yeah, work this out. It's a subjunctive tense. Well done. I was about to tell you guys that. And that is the really high-level tense. It's an A-level tense, so you don't have to know how it works. I would recommend using at least one of the phrases in your actual writing exam. Après avoir or après être. What does that mean? Is it after having, since I have, or when I have? Well done to the people in the chat who are saying yellow to the previous question. Yes, it means after having. So blue. Well done to those in the chat. Well done, Lydia, Daniel, important. Il faut que is not subjunctive. That just means one should. Il faut que je fasse is an example, so you could make that subjunctive, but that phrase by itself is not. Okay, moving on to the next one. Future perfect. How is it formed? Is it the future of the auxiliary plus the past participle of the verb, avoir or être in the present tense plus past participle, the future of the verb, or conditional of the main verb? Well done to those of you who said red. Well done to Mozart, and well done to the 12 of you playing the game. That's amazing. And the results. Commit reset is third. Que pasa is second. And first is... Well done, Baguette. Unfortunately, there's no prizes. Maybe the idea that you're going to get a top grade should be enough prize. Let's now move on to the next Kahoot. So let's see, maybe the people who didn't get a chance to play can play now. This Kahoot will be more based on vocab now. And this is actually quite difficult, so this is for higher. Okay, so I'm going to share the tab in 3, 2, 1. Congrats, everyone. Okay, 20 people have joined the Kahoot, so no one else can unfortunately join unless anybody else leaves because of the limit, but I would recommend playing via the YouTube chat. Okay, so we're going to get started and let's see who will win this time. This is more vocab, higher based. Link the sentence J'adore la nourriture italienne. So is it ni la pizza, remonte du fast food, comme le pâté, ou mangeant trop de fruits. Well done, it is yellow. Let's see who's made it to the top. Oh, still looking good with Que pasa and some newer people on the board as well. Where would you see this sign? Défense de marcher sur le pelouse. It's a hard one. A lot of people are answering though. Let's see. So the answer is in a park. So I guess you could have put 2 and 2 together and thought, do not walk effectively on the grass. Okay, it's changed. Oui, oui is at the top. Translate le corps. Is it lesson, playground, timetable, or corridor? Wow, so many people already answered. It is lesson. Okay, next. Which of these rooms is not on the ground floor? Is it kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, or dining room? I'm not too sure what the video is about. So the answer is bedroom. Well done, Carlene, and well done, people in the game. Okay. Translate. On est tendu de faire des activités parascolaires. We are expected to do extracurricular activities. Blue, we are needed to put up parasols. Yellow, we like to do winter sports. Or green, we hate doing activities indoors. Yep, the answer is red, and you probably got that from parascolaire, means extracurricular. Okay, staying roughly the same. Positive, negative, or both. Je ne m'ennuie jamais. This is a good question to test your knowledge on negatives and positives. So the answer is actually positive, because what you're saying, I never get annoyed. I do not annoy myself ever. So that's positive, isn't it? Or never, oh no, not annoy myself, bores me. Yep. Well done, Rose. Okay. What is le chercheur? Is it salesman, businessman, researcher, or pensioner? You should be able to get this from the verb. So it is researcher. Okay, moving on. Which is the odd one out? Is it cuisinière, policière, gendarme? So it is cuisinière, which is chef, because policière is police officer, and gendarme is constable. So that would have been a harder one to get. Thank you, Sports Commentary, for saying don't forget to subscribe. Let's try and get to 10K. I agree. We're so very close. So if you haven't subscribed, I would appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Okay. Well done, en bonne forme. You are in good health. Okay. Match this phrase to the job. Il travaille dans le cinéma. Is it le médecin, le retraite, le maçon, or le réalisateur? So the answer is le réalisateur. Il travaille dans le cinéma. So réalisateur is another name for director. And la directrice is head teacher. So make sure you know the difference between them. Okay. Moving on. Complete the phrase. Un travail bien, something. A well-paid job. Is it rémunère, paye, paye with Y, or plan? Seems that people know this one. It is paye or rémunère. Either one would do. The other two are incorrect. Well done to Important and Carlene in the chat and everybody else playing along. What does the verb licencier mean? To work, to fire, to start, or to recruit? It means to fire. Only one person got this one. So I guess it's one to remember. Yeah. A lot of people said to recruit. And that in French is just recruteur. So it's not that. Okay. Which is generally the best paid job? Is it serveur à temps partiel, avocat, soldat, or pompier? Avocat, which is lawyer. Otherwise, you've got waiter, soldier, or fireman or firewoman. Okay. Well done to those in the chat. Which job fits the description en plein air? Is it plombier, infirmier, chanteuse, or jardinier? You should be able to recognize this one. Yep, it is gardener. Plombier is plumber, infirmier is nurse, and chanteuse is singer. So well done to those in the chat. Well done, Important. Okay, positive, negative, or both. Il est branché. So it is positive. Branché means trendy. So that's a useful one to note. It's an adjective. Okay, moving on. Which is the correct conjugation of the verb aller in the past tense? We did a similar question to this. Which one is the correct conjugation? Yep, it is elle est allée. Because remember, she's feminine, obviously feminine, so it's going to have two E's there, and it's going to be EST because she, that is how you form that with the auxiliary. Well done, Carlene. Okay, continuing on. What is Mylene's view on hoodies? J'en ai marre de plus la capuche, mais ils sont confortables. Is it positive, negative, or positive and negative? Put it in the chat if you're not on the Kahoot, or put your answers as quick as possible. The answer is positive and negative. So the j'en ai marre effectively means I've had it up to here with jumpers, but they are comfortable. Okay. We're midway through now. What are piliers? Are they a medical condition, batteries, meal, or type of jewelry? This is sort of a trick question, which is interesting. So it is batteries, because a lot of people think de batterie, but that is actually drums. So de batterie are drums. So piles are batteries. No, okay. What is jardien? Or gardien, sorry. Excuse that. So people said, well, the correct answers were goalkeeper and lifeguard. So this is interesting. It means guardian, so I guess it makes sense to be a lifeguard, but I'm not sure how it's goalkeeper as well. Some people said babysitter. So in French, babysitter is literally babysitter. It's the same as in English. What does propre mean in English? Is it tidy, correct, own, or rented? And the answer is tidy and own. Could be either. Well done to those in the chat as well. What is the right word to complete the sentence? Normalement, nous recyclons le papier chaque minute, semaine, partie au siècle. Okay, so minute is minute, semaine is week, partie is part, and century is siècle. So it's semaine. Well done to those saying that. So siècle is century. Well done, Annie. Annie knows in the chat. Okay, what is a period of time? Séminaire, ordure, siècle, or mois. Yep, I just told you, for those of you who are listening, so it's century, as we said. Séminaire is seminar. Ordure is junk. So it's siècle. Yellow, well done. Moving on. Complete the sentence. Nos boissons sont something. Ils ne recyclent rien. So, boissons are neighbors. So our neighbors are paresseux, lazy, because they don't recycle. So that's the correct answer. Gentil is kind, bavard is talkative, and pénible means hard. Okay, we're almost done. Il est interdit de fumer dans le lieu public. Comme je fume, je ne suis pas d'accord avec ça. So, what does that link to? So, il est interdit means it is forbidden. So, it is forbidden to smoke on public transport. I do not agree with it. So, I don't know what... That was probably a response to that question. Well done. How would you say job in French? Emploi, travail, boulot, or job? So the answer is all of them. Well done to Carlene, who got that, and some other people as well. Which is a superlative? Jeune, plus gentil, moins ennuyant, or le plus intéressant? We spoke a lot about this in our live. So the answer is green, because superlative is effectively the most or the best, whereas comparatives are more or less. So yellow and blue were comparatives, and red was just an adjective. So well done for those who got it. What does ne, something que, mean in English? We also went through this. So is it never, only, none, or no more? The answer is only. Well done for the people in the chat who got that. Okay, and the scoreboard is looking very much similar to how it was before. What does the phrase quel dommage mean in English? So it means what a shame. Quelle catastrophe means what a catastrophe, and quelle horreur means how horrible. So it's what a shame. Which is negative? This is a hard one. but most people got it. So zut. So zut means, or I guess they're just curse words, aren't they? So damn. Well done, Annie. You're doing really well with a high answer streak. Which is a description of location? Là-bas, suivant, étroit, ou couvert? Là-bas, which means over there. Okay. Next, what is a material? Argent, ballon, cuir, or amour? Yep, the answer to that was là-bas. Well done, important, and Carlane who got that. So it could be argent or cuir. So argent typically means money, and cuir means leather. Next, what is something en cuir? I literally just said this, so you should know. Yep, it is leather. Well done. And I think this must be the last question now. What is meant by en colère? To be angry. So it's this idea of, when people say colorful language, that means like angry language. It's the same sort of idea there. Okay, and let's see where everybody ended up. So third place, fromage. Second, bonbon. And first is oui, oui. Okay, well done, everybody. And well done, everybody who was playing in the chat as well. That is really, really good. So thank you guys for joining these Kahoots. We'll be doing more lives every night before the exam, and tomorrow is going to be loads of different English literature lives. So I would love to see you guys there. I'm going to schedule them in a second and just attend the one that benefits you. And yes, so thank you so much all for joining. You guys all did really, really well. And yeah, we're going to do some more revision later on. The English lives you'll see on the community tab. I posted the times, but I'm going to schedule them very soon, and that way you're going to have access to all of them. So you can literally just click which one you want to join. Okay, everyone's going to do amazing, and I guess I will see you later on. If you have any questions, just comment them and I will respond. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and see you guys later.